Hello, everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and I've played through most of the demo now for Metaphor Refantazio, which goes on way longer than you think. I've played this game arguably longer than I've played Astrobot, and it's just the demo, which is kind of crazy to think about. So let's mull over it, give my first impressions for it, and my overall updated thoughts on Metaphor Refantazio, Atlus's new IP and newest RPG from the creators of Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. I am a big fan of what Atlus is doing with this game. Let's address the elephant in the room. It is 100% fantasy Persona. The people saying that it's not are on copium. 1000%. That's not a bad thing in my opinion, but it shows the strength of the Persona formula. Essentially, the game will be divided up into various operations that we undergo. Essentially, by a certain date, we have to complete a certain dungeon, Bob's your uncle. But up to then, you can level up various social stats, undertake quests, and hang out with NPCs. Sound familiar? But it's all gift-wrapped in this fantasy aesthetic that Metaphor Refantazio has going on, and I think it does a good job of doing this. We're still very early on, so, options to do are pretty limited, but I know they're going to be more down the line. But as someone who does enjoy Persona and that formula, I think it works here for the most part, at least from what I've played. And I think Metaphor Refantazio has unique-esque characteristics intermixed in all this familiarity that makes this game really stand out. I think the gameplay is exceptional. I have a few qualms with it, but overall, I really enjoy the formula that Metaphor Refantazio has, and how the game is seemingly trying to move away from various design elements introduced with Persona that some could argue make that game far too easy. In Metaphor Refantazio, targeting enemy weaknesses will buy you another turn, but not necessarily on that same character. I have not discovered a one more mechanic that works like it does in Persona. Essentially, the way combat works in Metaphor Refantazio is that you get a turn, the enemy gets a turn. But the number of turns you get can be increased if you hit enemy weaknesses. So say you start and it's your turn to go with all of your party members. I have 3 right now, so I get 3 moves to act. If I target an enemy weakness, I'll gain another move. But say the turn order is MC, Stroll, Hulkenberg. If MC successfully hits an enemy weakness, I'll gain another turn, but the next character to go will still be Stroll. Then it'll be Hulkenberg, and since I got an extra turn, it'll then move back to Makoto, or MC. Likewise, in this theoretical turn order of MC, Stroll, Hulkenberg, if Hulkenberg hit enemy's weakness, so it went MC, Stroll, Hulkenberg, then hits a weakness, I would gain an extra turn at that point, but it would still go back to the top of the order to MC. So MC would get to go again, not Hulkenberg. So I still feel rewarded for targeting enemy weaknesses, but I'm not gaining a significant power boost compared to being able to target what party member I want to go next. I would need to play this game a lot more to really know how I feel about this, but right now, I think it's an interesting premise and idea. For those familiar with Persona 3 or other games that do this, there's not just one physical type of attack, you have the 3 main ones back. I believe they are Strike, Slash, and Pierce, so enemies can be weak or strong or neutral against those 3 individually. The archetype system in this game operates on a very similar premise to the Persona system. Based on the archetype you have, it'll change what your strengths and weaknesses are and what spells you have available to you. However, unlike in Persona, at least right now, I don't change my archetype mid-battle, because by changing the archetype, I would also change the weapon I'm using. Knight uses a lance, Warrior uses a 2-handed sword, Seeker uses a 1-handed sword. So there's a lot of similarities to the Persona formula in Metaphor Refantazio that I imagine are also present in Shin Megami Tensei, but I'm not familiar with that series, so I can't comment on it. But if you're a Persona veteran like I am, you will know, or at least recognize, a lot of similar design philosophy, but it's tweaked and altered in certain ways to give Metaphor Refantazio a unique feeling and sense to it, and I think it works. The main idea for progression going forward in this game is going to be leveling up your various archetypes, because you have what are called synthesis skills. And based upon what composition of archetypes you have in your party, because you can swap archetypes for each of the party members, you gain various synthesis skills, which are essentially fusion attacks between, okay, say that Hulkenberg is a knight and Stroll is a warrior. If I am on Hulkenberg, I can use a synthesis skill that's available because Stroll is on warrior. Or I can use one with the MC, who I call J Makoto, and he may be on Seeker, or he may be on Mage, or he may be on Healer, and I'll get a different synthesis skill depending upon what they have. Likewise, if I use Stroll and use a synthesis skill with someone else, I'll gain different abilities. These are all in addition to the basic abilities you get for that archetype and just guarding and attacking normally. However, synthesis skills are really powerful, but they cost 2 turns, because you're not only using the turn of the character you're controlling, but also the character you're using the synthesis skill with. It's risk-reward and done in an interesting way. The game is really leaning into customization and RPG elements. Instead of just controlling what persona/archetype the MC has, you can change it out for each of your party members. You basically go to this game's version of Igor called More, and you can unlock different archetypes for different characters. You can then proceed to level them up if you want, using various items you may collect, or just, battle experience to rank up those archetypes for new skills. However, an interesting idea this game has is the ability to inherit skills. So, on Seeker, I have a spell that heals, Dia. If I then go to the healer archetype that, funnily enough, doesn't start with a heal spell, it has a light damaging spell. But if I want to play as healer for a quest, to rank it up to rank 10, but I still want the ability to actually heal, I can inherit the skill from the Seeker onto my healer. There's a lot of mechanics that this game does, like we talked about before with hitting enemy weaknesses, that feel like they are significantly weaker versions of what was there in Persona. That's not a con, it's just the way Metaphor handles things. And I'll say that, so far, I quite like this system. I'm about to fight a boss in an optional dungeon that I'm significantly underleveled for. However, this boss is weak to piercing attacks. You want to know the funny thing? The standard attack for the knight is a pierce attack, because they use a lance/spear. So what I can do is just unlock knight on all of my characters, and then go into that fight using that composition of 3 knights. Because you'll unlock various buffs or bonuses by using all the same archetype if that's your fancy. Or you can mix and match skills by having different party members. There's so many different ways to play, and I think in the long run, especially as the game continues and the ball keeps rolling, we acquire more archetypes, more abilities, more spells, all that good jazz. I can just think of how many different playstyles this game will bring to the table, and I love it when a game, especially an RPG, is able to facilitate that. And the dungeons I've done in this game so far have been really basic, but they've been fun. One of my biggest issues with Atlus RPGs, a lot of the time, can be the dungeon design. It's my biggest issue and critique for Persona 3 and 4. They can feel too linear, or just like a bunch of corridors intermixed with one another. It's one of the reasons I really like the dungeons in P5. However, so far I haven't run into a bunch of different puzzles that I have to solve that are pretty basic or anything like that. They've just been kind of dungeons with these rooms filled with monsters. But there can be interesting scenarios that happen here. Like, I can find holes in walls, or different ways to go to get different loot, fight different mobs, or like in one of the first tutorial-esque dungeons I did, which was this mine system, I eventually came across a dragon, and it was sleeping in the middle of this room. So I had 2 ways I can go about doing this. I can either sneak around it because this dragon's really tough, I can sneak around it and hopefully escape undetected, maybe loot a few things, but if I do that, I would have to be wary of fighting any smaller monsters that populate this room, because it might wake the dragon up. Or I can go balls to the wall and just attack the dragon. Very, very simple RPG stuff, right? It's a very simple choice. Sneak around the dragon or fight the dragon, but good God, does it work, and does it work well. It took me like 2 tries, but I took down the dragon, and know what? I got an extremely powerful weapon because of it, alongside other things. And I thought the weapon was powerful, but then I realized, wait a minute, remember the laundry system from P5? Well, it's here in a way, where various items can be purified, and they can be purified at the church. So you go to the church, you need rank 2 wisdom, you gotta get that up to par, but once you get that, they'll be like, okay, give us the holy water and this weapon, we can purify it, we give you a really nice weapon. And all of a sudden, this already powerful weapon I got became way more powerful, but also instead of doing strike damage or slash damage, it now did fire damage. When I went to the optional goblin dungeon at that point, guess what the dogs that populate the room were weak to? Fire. So now all of a sudden my Stroll was just pumping out fire damage and is easily my big DPS powerhouse early game. All because I chose to actively go against this tough challenge early on, and I was justly rewarded for doing so. I love it when games do this. So often can games have these big challenges that are optional that you may go across, and the rewards are like, hey, congratulations, you did it, here's 5 rice kernels, here's a bronze dagger you'll never use, here's 100 gold. I like being rewarded with gear. This game rewards me with gear often. I got another weapon, a lance this time, that I can purify when I get back to the church. At least so far, this game has a really satisfying progression loop. Now, I will say that Goblin Dungeon, they were a bit, let's call them dickheads when they created this demo, because you see what they did was, you were given the choice. Basically, when you get your first main operation, so within 10 days you have to go into the catacombs and defeat a necromancer. That's your first main operation, you have to do that by a certain date. What you do up to then is up to you though. However, if you choose to go into the main dungeon, after a certain point, they even tell you the demo will end. Or, you can have 3 in-game days pass at the start of the operation, and at that point, the demo will also end. What they don't tell you, right, is that if you do a side quest that is also available to you in this time, it'll take you to an optional dungeon, a dungeon that is filled to the brim with various goblins. I decided to do this, and I'm on hard mode. For those who don't know, when I went to this dungeon, I was like level 8, level 9. The goblins in this dungeon, true story, are like level 16. So I was just getting bodied over and over and over and over again. So I think the intended progression loop here is that you do the main dungeon, you level up in there, then afterwards, in the downtime before the end of the operation schedule, you then go to the goblin dungeon and do it then. Can't exactly do that in the demo though, and me being stubborn as all hell, I made it to the end of the dungeon, where the boss proceeded to two-shot me, repeatedly. Yeah, that boss was mean, so I had a bit of a dilemma on my hands. You see, I ended stream after realizing, you know what, I'm not gonna be able to take down this boss at all, any capacity. I have to level up. Leveling up in this dungeon, bit of a pain, because remember, those goblins, really powerful. And also, it was the end of the dungeon, I was on pretty much 0 MP. However, interesting mechanics brought to the table with Metaphor Refantazio. If you play as mage, you get a passive where every time you defeat an enemy, your entire party gains 1 MP. I think this will increase over time. So what I decided to do was, okay, my save is going to carry over to the main game, and I really don't want to have to do this entire dungeon again. I'd rather just be able to do it here. And I don't mind grinding. I've played MMORPGs my entire life. I can just sit down and grind and throw on YouTube or something and just zone out. I have no problem doing that. So I started doing that and gaining a few levels, and then I had the realization, you know, if I'm just trying to gain levels here and grind, there's no real reason to do this in hard mode. So I knocked it down to easy, and I started to get to the point where I could defeat a lot of these goblins with the real-time combat, and I don't have to even go into the turn-based combat. But when I do, I gain advantage, so they're stunned for a turn. Sometimes I get an additional attack immediately. I can just kill them before they do any significant damage. This starts to snowball as I gain levels. As my archetypes start to rank up, I become more powerful, I gain even new spells. Now I have access to fire, ice, and lightning damage on my mage. I'm just piling up kills, I'm piling up XP, I'm becoming more powerful, but by doing so, and because I'm also being MP efficient, because remember, Stroll hits like a goddamn truck, I'm also regenerating my MP, which I desperately need because physical skills in this game cost MP, not HP. I know a lot of other RPGs do the same, so it's one of those things where I just come from Persona, so I have to get used to it, which I already kind of am. But for me, yeah, like, this was frustrating for a bit, right? But I do appreciate that it was also possible for me to do this. Because at the end of the day, and at the end of it all, in this game, actions have consequences, as they should. I chose to go into the Goblin Dungeon. I could have reverted my save and not done it. But I wanted to be a stubborn jabroni, so I stayed there. But the game gave me a tool with this mage passive to dig myself out of this hole that I dug myself into. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, and like, I know a lot of people out there will go, wow, that's not fun, or that doesn't sound fun at all. I kind of like it, because I also could have just left the dungeon and essentially took a knee on that day and just waste my time there, but gain a little bit of extra power. I could have done that and come back another day with full MP, or just wait till the full game comes out, do the main dungeon, then come back and do it then. Or I can be really stubborn about it, because once I get fully all my MP back, I gain some new levels, I can then go back to hard mode and then just do the fight at a level more appropriate for it. That doesn't just involve insane RNG or cheese. I like that I'm able to do that. To me, that's a pro in a weird way. Now, I want to talk about the story a little bit. I've already talked about my thoughts on the overall way this game does a narrative before. I'm quite positive about it. I think the voice acting is really good. I really like the characters. There was one part of the main story, spoilers for the rest of this video, for the demo at least. I haven't finished the main story part of the demo, because I haven't gone to the main dungeon yet, but spoilers just in case. Like, the death of Grius is a little fast in my opinion, and kind of just happens. But I think it's one of those things where I have to see how this entire story plays out before I really comment on my thoughts on it. Because it feels fast now, but that could also just be by design. Because this game is setting up some massive twists and plot turns that it could have. And I want to be willing to hear the game out in regards to that. I will say this game is really in your face with its overall theme that racism is bad. Like, yeah, it is. Cool. They don't really stop. Basically, you play as the MC, and the MC is from a race known as the Elder. You're like one of the last ones remaining, but people really, really, really don't like Elder, and they're not afraid to tell you. So it's one of those things where be prepared where nearly every NPC you talk to, especially in the main city, will go, oh god, you're an Elder? Well, I do have this quest for you. You talk to a vendor and it's like, oh god, you're an Elder? Oh, dude, cringe. Well, I mean, I can still sell you stuff, I guess. There's this one moment where you go to the church, right? Because for another quest, I need to go to the church to buy an item, like this, like, cleansing wind or some shit. So you gotta talk to the priest there. He's like, oh god, you're an Elder? I mean, I guess I can sell you this, but I'm gonna have to sell you for, like, 500, gold. And your little fair companion's like, why the hell is it so pricey for us? It's like, look, you're an Elder, though, you know what I mean? Maybe the game will mellow out with how in your face it is in regards to this issue. My only main concern is that it might get kind of repetitive, because it kind of already is getting there. But I don't mind a blunt and in-your-face message, so long as the way it's told is fun and interesting. I normally like atlus-based stories, so again, it's one of those things where I just kind of have to hear them out here. The different social classes and the overt racism all the races in this game feel towards one another is definitely one of the major themes going on here, so yeah, it's a wait and see for me. I will say, overall, the story does have me hooked. I'm vastly interested to learn more about this world. The art style is gorgeous. This game is so pretty. Good god, does it have performance issues at some points, though? Especially when you see more in the overworld. For some reason, he just tanks my frame rate, and I don't get why. In most other places, it's fine. It's just whenever I see more on the screen, being like, hey, come to my library, please. Okay, thanks. Whenever I'm near him, my frame rate tanks. Or at least noticeably dips. But yeah, overall, I'm hooked. I'm sold in this game. It's really fun. It's interesting. Voice acting is great. Dialogue overall is well written. I'm a fan of it. I love the characters so far. I love the art style. I love the creature design. I love the design of the architects so far. Though I'm hoping to get a bit more variety. Because right now they kind of give off the vibe of Common Blades from Xenoblade 2. Gameplay is super fun. I'm really intrigued by the RPG mechanics this game has and is leaning into. And music is a 10 out of 10. Good god, it's amazing. So yeah, with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.